So, welcome to our Psilocybin Summit special, and welcome to all of our members of the San Francisco Psychedelic Society. Such an honor to be with you here Friday, September 10th. And I'm super excited because we have one of our dear friends that's joining us here for the first time ever at our membership community. I'm really excited to welcome Daniel Shankin, who is the founder of Tam Integration and also the founder of the Mount Tam Psilocybin Summit, which is happening on September 16th through the 20th of this year, which is a worldwide celebration of myth, magic, science, and culture. And Daniel has been a dear friend to me, and he was actually one of the first people that was part of the San Francisco Psychedelic Society even before we joined. So Daniel and I have worked closely in the psychedelic community for many years, and he's just been an integral part of this work, part of my healing path. And Daniel has truly dedicated his life to supporting individuals through coaching with integration and educating about the safe and careful and magical use of psychedelics. And he puts on many different offerings through integration circles and groups and educational classes and resources for the psychedelic community at large. And so I'm just really excited to have Daniel here today to share with us all about the insides of the Psilocybin Summit, what we are to expect from the summit. So welcome, Daniel. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. That was very kind. Although I got to say, when you said I dedicated my life to it, it felt a little, I was like, oh, my whole life. But it was very, very sweet. And I feel the same way about you. All the kind things you said about me, I feel about you as well. It's really kind of nice to be among friends. I also want to tell people who are participating is that, hopefully we will excuse me, hopefully we will be able to weave some other value in here that's not just shilling an event. I want it to be valuable to you. But I'm sure, please learn about the Psilocybin Summit, but hopefully we're able to let you walk away with more than that as well.
Beautiful. I love that. Daniel, would you feel called to open us up with a grounding meditation?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sometimes, I don't know if you guys know that old phrase, WWJD, what would Jesus do? Maybe you have the lanyard of it, the initials, you have your keys on it when you were a latchkey kid or something. But I sometimes like to ask, WWFD, what would my feet do? How do my feet feel about the situation right now? Because I can have a tendency to get up into my head. I can have a tendency to get up in my head, both in and out of psychedelic spaces. And I find that it can be really, really handy for me to just draw my energy down and to kind of notice, ask myself, what would my feet do? And actually take some time to actually notice my feet, to remember that I actually live in a body. And so what I might like to ask you all is, would you do that? Would you check in just with the lowest parts of your body that you can? Maybe your sitting bones are on the ground, maybe your feet are on the ground. And just using your imagination, using your capacity for visualization, just draw breath down to those places. Perhaps even having the sense that you're drawing in light from the sun into those places, like that the light from the sun, the light from the stars, and all of the galaxies can enter the body on the breath and nurture each and every cell all the way down to your feet. We're actually giving a talk on LSD yesterday. Maybe we might be talking a lot about psilocybin today, but we were talking about LSD yesterday. And one of the things that, I always thought was cute about LSD is, that it shortens to L. Sometimes we just call it L. And it always struck me that the L sometimes could stand for light or life or love. And that when we breathe and we ground and we center, we can tune into those three qualities. Just the very act of breathing gives us vitality, gives us more life force, vibrancy. And when we meditate, either with molecules or without molecules, we often feel more connected to other forms of life on the planet, feel more connected to our fellow human beings and even to our fellow plants and animals. So there's this deep respect for life, this deep um, resonance with it. We recognize that we are alive and that we're grateful to be so. And sort of like I was saying, is this idea of breathing in, we kind of recognize that we are bringing in photons from the sun, from the moon, from other galaxies into our bodies. And we get to enlighten a little bit, and that through our meditations, whether they're molecular or otherwise, kind of lighten and brighten our mind and our energy system. We get more brilliant naturally. So perhaps you can just even feel that brilliance in your mind manifesting as clarity, manifesting as maybe a mood upliftment, a lightness of mood, a little bit more joy. It's almost as if you can feel your body getting brighter and brighter with each breath. And so those first two words relate to our body, relate to our mind. And then the third one, love, relates to our hearts, which is also something, a part of us that sometimes when we start to take psychedelics, we feel it, might even feel it opening for the first time, or opening more and more deeply every time. And we recognize that this love is comes from within us, right? It's not like we have to go out and find love or convince somebody to love us or something like that. Is that we can actually just generate it. That our breath makes it, just our breath fuels the love generation machines that we are. And so perhaps you can just take a few breaths into the heart. And just feel that kind of love, compassion, friendliness, kindness, all of those sorts of qualities just radiating out in all directions infinitely. And so, what I would ask you to do is to see if you can maintain those qualities, just recognizing that you can generate this forever like this, because this is an integration practice, cultivating these qualities in the face of the challenges of our world. And so perhaps just seeing if you can maintain this energy that you cultivated in this brief meditation, even as you open your eyes and we start to talk about, whatever it is we end up talking about. And thank you for your intention. Thank you for your attention and intention. Do I have a singing bowl? I really have a singing bowl. Ping.
Thank you, Daniel, for that beautiful
Sure.
meditation. I love how you've always integrated such grounding, connected practices into your work.
It's either that or go mad.
So tell us, we are all here because we are super excited about the Psilocybin Summit. I know you do so much other work in the psychedelic realm. Tell us what inspired the Psilocybin Summit. This is the third year that it's happening. What sparked that vision for you?
What sparked that vision? I, you know, I've got some friends. We have some mutual friends who seem to be very like easily nomadic. And it seems like they were always going to these very exciting conferences. And they would go to one in Acapulco, and they would go to the Czech Republic, and then they would be over here, and they would be over there, and they were always going to all kinds of things, meeting all kinds of awesome people, learning all kinds of cool things. And I'm not quite as easily nomadic. And it wasn't really practical for me to go all over the place. And but I still wanted to do that stuff. And I figured, well, if it wasn't practical for me, it really wasn't practical for other people. So I was trying, for a bit, I had been sort of trying to figure out how to do more online stuff. And this was in like 2018, 2019. If you remember those first events we did at the coffee shop in Marin, like we were live streaming those. Like we had, we had to like, it was expensive. We had to figure out how to like convince a camera guy, and we had to get this stuff to hook it into the computer, and it was tricky. I mean, I know other people were doing it, but we were a ragtag bunch. But I finally sort of found the software, um, and we decided to give it a shot to do a couple of days of content. And it turned out that there were so many amazing community members that had so many amazing things to share that it was like really easy to fill all the time. And we found that we had to, we went from 2 days to 3 days to 4 days, like overnight. And now we have about 7 days of content. And it's just hard to stop at this point. But that's kind of what it was, is I just wanted to kind of, have cool conversations with amazing people. And I wanted other people to have a chance to be a part of them too. That seemed like a good reason.
Absolutely. See a lot of heads nodding. And
Mhm.
so how
And
have
of course, like, we want to end the drug war and all that kind of stuff. Stop addiction, keep people from dying from overdoses and stuff like that. So there was that too, on the back burner, behind the scenes working.
And so over the years, you've been bringing different speakers to the summit. How have you seen it grow and expand its mycelial web and the impact that it's made?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of the cool thing. It's like, I don't necessarily have to know all the impact that it makes. I just sort of have to do my thing. But it does seem like, and I don't know if it's me or if it's other stuff. I mean, everybody's playing their part, but, psychedelics are more widely acceptable. I mean, or maybe I'm in a bubble. I don't really know how to answer that question, but, it's nice that we seem to be able to have increasingly high level and nuanced conversations about psychedelics with more and more people, which is cool. Yeah. And I just keep making more friends, which is great too. It's like people find their way to the summit and then they hang around for integration circles, which is really like the thing that we like doing the most. We like having integration circles, which are intimate circles like this, where people can hang out and talk about what's really going on for them. And we get a chance to know each other. And there's this thing has happened in the integration circles where there's this one guy who lives in Las Vegas, kind of near Meow Wolf, And like people have been flying to Las Vegas to like go to Meow Wolf with this guy. And so like people are like, whereas before we would meet in Marin, and then like, the couple of people in Marin would, we'd hang out, and then maybe we would go, get some food afterwards or something like that, or we'd have a little meeting on a weekend or something like that. People are flying to see each other from around the globe, which is really kind of cool.
It sounds like some profound impact that these offerings are cultivating these friendships. People are flying to meet each other and to create real life friendships. And I love that intention of people building this network and truly making lifelong friends through this work.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
tell
you
us
would like.
about,
No, go ahead.
I'm just curious about the Psilocybin Summit this year. What speakers are you looking forward to learning from? What kind of offerings are happening at the summit?
Well, one of the things that I'm really excited about is my talk is going to be translated into Spanish. We have people from all over the place, and there's a lot of psilocybin culture and practice that happens in Mexico, right? Like Oaxaca, southern Mexico, and that kind of thing. And so we have a bunch of talks from Mexico because it's only right? It's that's the other thing about psychedelic conferences. I've seen a lot of psychedelic conferences where it was just a bunch of guys in suits talking about either science or money. And those aren't, and those are fine. Science and money are cool, but they're not like my favorite things. I like arts and culture and practice. I want to like get my my hands dirty. I want to get my feet in the dirt. And so if you it's tough. So this is the other thing that's nice about doing this for a couple of years, is that you start to kind of meet the people who know the people who know the people who know the people that are sort of like living on a mountain, like talking to my like eating mushrooms with a mountain, in like rural Mexico. And you can sort of start to coax those people out in front of the camera, right? Because you just do it once, they're like, oh, whatever. You do it like 3 or 4 times, they're like, oh, that guy is back, that guy's asking again. All right, I guess we'll do it. And so Thursday afternoon, we have a lot of content from Mexico. And then my talk just so happens to be squished in the middle. And so I figured, since we have a Spanish translator for Thursday, why not just translate my talk into Spanish while we're translating all the Spanish people's talks into English? And then more people can have access to stuff, because I don't necessarily get to share my teachings very often with people that don't speak English. And accessibility, we told you that we started this based on accessibility. Last year, somebody, and I think that they were trying to out woke me. Like, I think they were trying to be like super woke. And they were like, well, what are you doing for like accessibility for people who are hearing impaired? Like, are there going to be captions, or what are you going to do? And I was like, well, my wife's cousin is a sign language interpreter. Like, why don't I just ask her? And then she was like, oh yeah, my friend Andy like is super into psychedelics. Like, I'm sure she would love to just sign language interpret your conference. And so now Andy sign language interprets our conference. Not all of the talks, but a lot of them. It'd be a long day, but she's brilliant. And Andy is almost kind of like my TikTok life coach. Like, she's really great. She's like very inspired and empowered, and like she's like living her best life on TikTok, just like breaking stuff down. And I also need, like, I have gray in my beard, so it's like when I can get a chance to talk to like a really brilliant 28-year-old who's like, you know, wants to tell me about like, yeah, the things that she does. It's great. So she's like brilliant and positive and does sign language. And so we've gotten to, have a collection of talks that work for the hearing impaired. Although I got to tell you, the hearing impaired never write me emails and say thanks. Like, I do not know if really anybody who is deaf who speaks sign language has actually gotten in front of them, which is interesting. But I do know that every once in a while, someone will like share their screen and like Andy blanks out, and people in the chat get very upset. Like, they want her there. So maybe people are watching, but I don't know for sure. And I don't know if that answers your question. What am I excited about? I guess I'm excited that we are translating stuff into Spanish and that I get to teach in Spanish this year. Let me just look at my schedule. My schedule's up on the wall. We're having our friend Amanita Dreamer, of course, is coming. Oh, psychedelic parenting. So, which I'm very, very psyched about. I don't know if you guys know Julie Holland. Julie Holland wrote Good Chemistry. She's like a really brilliant, she's just beyond brilliant. She's one of like the medical directors at like Bellevue Hospital, and is usually asked to speak about very serious topics. But the thing about Julie is, on her Facebook page, during the pandemic, she and her husband and her kids formed a band. I think they had a band. They sort of played music together, and like every day they would play music on Facebook. And I was like, that's good parenting. And so I asked Julie, it was like, will you do a parenting panel with Julian Bain and Omalewa? And she was like, that's creative. I like it. So we get to have, it's really fun when you also get to take people who are like brilliant and known for one thing. And then you get to say, I see you over here. I see that you're doing cool stuff over here too. Can we do that instead? And then people are usually pretty excited because people like to be seen. Also, I would like to invite, there's only 7 of us. Anybody who wants to join in is welcome to chat. Is that okay with you, Danielle? Like, I'm happy to talk to anybody about anything. I'm happy to listen to anybody's experience or anything they want to bounce off me, or questions they might have about whatever.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
I was wondering what you think about, I had a few good shroom trips, and I was thinking about doing it again, but I felt some resistance. So can you talk about what state of mind you should be in before doing a shroom trip?
Mm-hmm. Will you tell me more about the resistance?
Like, I feel like maybe not all of my psyche is not ready to do a shroom trip.
Okay.
I guess.
What do you think your psyche would need to be ready?
I don't know. Maybe like research it more or something.
Okay, so you feel called to like do some sort of mental, like some cognitive, like just fact finding and information finding?
Yeah. Might have been a dumb question.
No, it's not a dumb question. It's just, so I answer questions with questions. So I'm just sort of trying to get to know you, because it's hard for me to answer. These are personal, psychedelics are personal, right? And so, if we have resistance, then, it's my sense that it's there for, it's trying to tell you something. And it might be telling you that, there's things you need to do to overcome the resistance on one level or another. And maybe, do some more homework. Like, Erowid is a really cool resource. You can read a lot about psychedelic, you can read a lot about mushrooms on Erowid, which is cool. Or it might be that you've got like some deep held like tension, anxiety, depression, fear. I don't know you, I'm guessing. but like you might be bummed out about something that happened and it needs some care. It's like, that's one thing that we can say is like in 2021, most of us require a lot of care. We had a little bit of, um, so a lot of us have had a rough go of it lately, and when I say lately, some of us have had a rough go of it for the past like 2 decades, and it's like we've been kicked around a little bit more than we deserved. And, you know, uh, the psychedelics are can be our way of, looking for some deeper meaning, looking for some healing, looking for a deeper connection to spirit or something like that. And that's all really good stuff. But sometimes we have to process the difficulty to get through it. It's like sometimes, we can have a great time, but we can also be like, oh, there's some heavy stuff I need to deal with. And so sometimes the resistance is just like, maybe I need a friend to be there with me. Maybe I need to like seek out like a special space to do it in, or that kind of thing. Yeah, go ahead. Were you gonna say something? You're muted.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh no. But yeah, sounds very meaningful. I'll take that into account.
Yeah, for sure. I hope I didn't dance around your question too much.
No, it was good.
There's also this fun thing called the Fireside Project. If you Google Fireside Project, it's basically a hotline for people who are on drugs to have somebody to call. And so having something like the Fireside Project in your phone can sometimes put us at ease because we know that there's going to be somebody there we can talk to. And sometimes just knowing that there's somebody there can chill us out a bit. We were actually just, I recorded a talk today with a guy named Dr. Saad, who runs an organization called Silo Health. And one of his things is sort of he's really into peer support. And so we were talking about how can we kind of prepare ourselves, how do we train and prepare ourselves so that we can sit for our friends? It's like, wouldn't it be cool if there was just, there's a lot of talk about psychedelic therapy, therapists and guides and stuff like that. But, I would like to see a world, and I think we're seeing this more and more, and as decriminalization happens more and more, we're going to see people just sitting with each other, people taking turns, like making tea and bringing us chocolate and changing the radio station so that their friends can, have a lighthearted, safe time getting super high. And so that's one of the talks that we're going to have at the summit. A shroom revolution. Yeah.
I really appreciate your question, Nick, and how important the mindset and setting that we're in is contributing to these altered states of consciousness that we're in. And just the fact that you're coming here, asking these questions and being a part of our community is helping provide that support and education. And I definitely think coming to some of our groups or Daniel's groups to process your psychedelic experiences, even prepare for your psychedelic experiences, is really helpful to be able to have that supportive network of people to come to learn from other people's experiences, and just so you know that you're not alone and you can process anything that comes up in our community.
Thanks.
Thank you. So Daniel, I'm really excited about the summit, that you have so many different speakers, from sex and psychedelics to families to there's psychedelic activism and psychedelic feminism. even have Senator Scott Wiener from California. Love
I
to
got a
learn.
senator.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Can you believe he wrote back? Like, I just messaged him on Instagram and they were like, well, come on, man, send us an email. So I sent them an email. I sent, we've got an email, and we sent the email and they wrote back. And they were like, yes, but you can't give them any money. Right? It's like sort of there'd be some sort of conflict of interest, or, it's like when you're a senator, I think that you have to be, there's ethics committees that oversee how money gets given, and you can't just, he's not going to take money from some hippie to talk about drugs at a drug festival, which I think is smart on his part, I suppose. But, he's going to be talking about SB 519, which admittedly I don't know a lot about because I don't live in California anymore. And also, I don't really care about politics. It's not my strong suit. It's like I'd much rather, talk, talk to Nick about his feelings, than talk about like how we're going to change policy. But he's coming, and that's cool because people do want to hear about it. People are interested, and it's taken sort of some left turns. I think it's been tabled for a while. There's been a lot of controversy. A lot of people are mad about it. A lot of, it's politics. It's just kind of wild when people who like run the government answer your emails.
And for those on this call, I know Dr. Sandra is very familiar with SB 519, but for those that are watching this, just SB 519 is the initiative that is aiming to decriminalize psychedelics statewide in California. And it's been going through a long process, basically decriminalize the possession and use and growing of certain psychedelics. And it's now putting limits on how much people can possess and distribute. It does not allow for sales. It's not creating like a legal framework for distribution or sales. We're not going to see mushroom shops pop up. And also ketamine was taken out of the decriminalization, as was peyote. And there's just been a lot, as Daniel shared, there's been a lot of different compromises that have been made, and the bill was parked for about a year. And we're going to be hearing a lot more about what's happening with that and the impact that's going to make across California. And there's definitely other cities and states that are looking towards California to potentially create a model for decriminalization. And I think the end goal for SB 519 is to ultimately create statewide all drug decriminalization, so that people can stop going to jail and be criminalized for working with sacred medicines and working with drugs, and to not make this something that people are losing their lives over. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. And it's exciting that the senator is coming to the summit to share more about this.
Indeed it is. And he is going to be, we also have Vonda Nishiva that I'm very excited about, because she doesn't usually work in, with psychedelics. She's mostly works with sort of like food security, like decolonization of food. And she fights against the desacralization of nature and the way that people just commodify nature and stuff like that. She's got like honorary doctorates from like 7 universities around the world, and just like wins awards. She's got like award after award, like awards you've never heard of, but they sound really, really impressive. And I don't really have any. But so it's really cool. And if you ever listen to her speak, she's very passionate, very inspired. And her arch nemesis, does anybody here have like an arch nemesis? You have an arch enemy, Emily?
I'm kidding.
Nick, do you have like an arch enemy?
Maybe like the idea of the devil.
The idea of the devil. Okay. Vonda Nishiva's like she goes like toe to toe with Bill Gates. because he does all kinds of weird things about like um food, like he messes with food. There's a lot of genetically modified stuff that he's into, really like producing all of this sort of, you know, capitalism and food. If you mix capitalism and food, like there's Bill Gates. And so she is constantly like fighting the stuff that he's trying to do, which is like, and I think it just sort of works, like she's putting up a good fight. Like if I were to like fight, like I'm like a gnat, I'm like a cockroach, and Bill Gates could crush me, but she stands a chance. She stands a chance to like keep our food system healthy, and make sure that people have healthy, pure, ungenetically modified food. And so she's going to be talking about the integration of activism, which I think is really, really important, because I don't know if I'm the only person who has taken psychedelics and then the psychedelics are like, dude, you really should change the world. Dude, the world is messed up. You got to go fix it. Go fix the world. And then I come down, I'm like, how? Like, I don't know. It's like, oh, and then maybe I try something and then I realize that, there's a lot of other energies that are trying not to have the world be fixed for whatever reason. And that's like really frustrating because like I can only do as much as I can do. And so the question is like, because it's kind of like, do you remember when, they were like, oh, nobody should use straws anymore? And then you realize, well, wait, like most of the waste that's happening is industrial. Like me using or not using a straw is like so minuscule in the grand scheme of things, but they're just sort of like trying to take our attention away from like massive corporate waste and pollution and then get you to like blame it on like the chick who like doesn't bring like a travel mug to Starbucks. Right. It's not about the travel mug, travel mugs at Starbucks, although Starbucks being this major corporation could create, less waste. So we're having a panel about that and how psychedelics make us want to change the world and what we can actually do about it. So we've got Vonda Nishiva on that, along with David Bronner of Bronner Soap and Izzy who's one of the policy councils from MAPS. He runs, he's one of the MAPS's lawyers. And so that is sort of like, that's a panel I'm really proud of. Like I feel like I kind of worked some of these things, they come together, your friend is like, hey, I want to give a talk about sex. Be like, great, come and talk about sex. And then it just happens. But then you've got to like, get some powerhouses and get them to agree on a time and get them to agree on a topic and then birth them out into the world. It's kind of like a big deal. That's the integration of my activism. That's what my activism looks like, is like try to get people that are way smarter than me in a room together and put on a show for everybody else. So I'm really, really psyched on that one.
You certainly have put together a lot of powerhouses in one event, and I'm really excited for that all these conversations. Seems like it's longer this year than normal. Did you extend it this year?
I can't say no to people. I can say no to some people. I can't say no to a lot of people. So I started, and then also I have like a raise your hand if you sometimes have a scarcity mentality. Oh my God, I'm not gonna have enough. There's not enough for me in the world. I'm gonna starve to death or not have enough love. So I'm like, oh no, I'm not gonna have enough content. There's not gonna be enough cool stuff for people to see and nobody's gonna want to come. And so then I just like hustle my ass off to try and like come up with 25 talks, right? Which is about, so 20, if you think about it, like if you have 7 hours a day times 4 days, that's like 28. And then we've got an opening thing and a closing thing. And, we might not fill them all or, whatever. Start a little later on Sunday, except we're not. And so then I'm like, oh my God, I got to fill 25 talks. And then like the next minute I turn around, I got 40. So what the hell am I supposed to do with 40? So we've got a bunch of pre-recorded talks that start on Monday. And so that's what we're doing. Got some pre-recorded talks. So it's long. It's like a week. It's like a week of stuff.
It's a lot.
I know. I need a hobby or something.
It's amazing amount of content. What's your
And then
vision? Sorry, go ahead.
No. Just blah blah blah. What were you gonna say?
I was curious what your vision is for the Psilocybin Summit in the years to come.
Will somebody else do it, please, next year? That's my vision. Is let's let somebody else do it next year. I don't have one like that. I don't think I'm that. I mean, what would you like to see? What would you like to see in the years to come?
I think it would be amazing someday if it was in person and people could really experience all these talks live and just get to experience, potentially get to have a mushroom ceremony at the conference and get to meet all of these people and create a network around it in person. I think that would be really beautiful.
Well, don't tell anybody, but we did a mushroom ceremony the first year. You know, it was like we were very excited that it was BYO. It was a BYO ceremony.
I remember
and
that.
not everybody BYO'd. But we just kind of provided a place in Oakland. Oakland had recently decriminalized, and we said we're going to have, you know, an after party. We're going to call it Afterglow, and we're going to bring in, you know, some traditional, you know, some people who have cacao in their lineage, you know, lineage holders of cacao, and we're going to bring in, you know, some hippies with the singing bowls, and we're gonna let it happen. So yeah, having it in person would be nice. Having it in person would be nice. It changes some of it for sure, some of the energy of it all. Absolutely. To be honest, when this is over, I would really like to focus on teaching some more. Like, it is nice to put events together, but I really have been getting a kick out of doing my meditation classes. You know, my meditation for trip sitting, my meditation for the journeys, and, you know, sort of training people to be their own best trip sitters and training people to hold space for each other and those sorts of things, helping facilitate transformation and growth for each other. And I've been teaching, you know, I've been a meditation teacher for 20 years or so. And so, you know, getting a chance to kind of do that is nice. And so I think that, you know, I have half a coaching training program put together, and I need to put together the other half. And so whether or not there's, you know, what that means for conferences and summits, I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of my vision for, and arguably, you know, that might end up creating more impact, or, you know, of a deeper sort. You know, if we're talking about how to really allow the mycelium to spread in a way that is kind of like healthy and vibrant, that really creates fruiting bodies, the fruiting bodies that we want to eat. You know, so training some coaches might do that. Nick would make a fantastic coach, I got a feeling.
Maybe, I don't know.
We'll give you a couple of years. You know, you'll give you a couple of years. No hurry.
Well, it sounds like you have some amazing plans, educational plans in store. Excited to see what you brew up and the ripple of the impact that it makes. Just want to open it up to our membership community. If anyone would like to join us for the conversation?
I feel like I should say something at this point. Having taken both his classes and gone to the Tam Integration Jam, which hasn't been mentioned yet, and of course, I'm a regular at the Integration Circle. I'm willing to out myself with that. and I feel like we need all of it, Daniel. But if I could give an award for contributions to the community and to the mycorrhizal spreading, I would certainly give it to you. So thank you.
Oh,
Daniel.
nice. What's the name? What's the name of the award that I'm getting right now?
The Mush Love Award from the
Oh, my
psychedelic
goodness.
community. I just named it right
That's
now. We
amazing.
can rename it. We can rebrand it. You know, most mycorrhizal spread. My mycelium running award. How about that? Is that a little sexier? Mycelium running award. Okay, the mycelium running award.
I feel like that's
give it. You know, we should make an award. There you go. See, you know, there you know.
Don't do it.
But it's, you know, you have the award of my heart, and that I think,
Thank you.
at the very least I can give to you. You've given me so much love, and if I can at least give it to you in this moment and honor you and respect you for all you've contributed, at least to my life, and how I'll be rippling out. So thank you.
Sure. You're gonna make me cry.
Me too.
That's so beautiful. Thank you, Dr. Sandra, for being such an integral part of all of these communities. And I just feel like super grateful for the love that you expressed and the impact that Daniel has made on your life and the lives of so many others.
And I know that that person you mentioned in Vegas would certainly tell you that you saved his life. So at least
Well,
there's one person.
you're both.
Oh, don't talk him. No, you accept the compliment with open hands. Accept it. Just say,
fine.
You're right. Thank you. You're right.
You're right.
Love you.
Just saving people's lives left and
You
right.
are. You are. You absolutely are. Crying yet?
Nope.
That's not my aim, but it was. But thank you for giving me an opportunity to at least give that back.
Sure. What else is on everybody's mind?
What's the topic you're not going to be covering that you wish you could have covered?
What do I wish we could have covered that we're not covering? Oh, I don't know. I think we mostly got it. I mean, I did just today make sure we have some kirtan. So there will be some music, which we almost didn't have. So we'll have some music, and that's nice. Yeah.
That's really cool to feel like you've really covered the topics that you wanted to cover. So you're doing a good job.
I suppose.
Okay, how about a funnier question? If Monty Python were to make a suggestion to add into the summit, what would it be?
Monty Python? I don't know. You know, we've had comedians in the past.
Yeah.
And they're fun. You know, it's certainly fun to have comedians. I mean, it would be cool to have, I don't know if you're familiar with Johnny Showcase. Johnny Showcase, when I lived in Philadelphia, is my favorite local band. And he's sort of a parody of of an R&B soul band. And like, that would be great. Like, we have kirtan, we have sacred music. It would be cool to have Johnny Showcase. I suppose maybe I should put him in the chat. He's in America's Got Talent this year. And yeah. It's some really, really important work that Johnny Showcase is doing. If I was going to give out an award, it would be to Johnny Showcase. The one thing that also sometimes I think about is that we have sort of pigeonholed ourselves into psilocybin. You know, that it would be a little bit nice to be able to expand. Like, we snuck in Amanitas. There's an hour of Amanita content, and hopefully nobody gives me too much fuss. You know, people do things like, you know, you make like an ad or something. You take a, you know, like a picture of a cartoon mushroom or something like that. You make like a little graphic, and people have to be like, those aren't psychedelic mushrooms. And be like, I know, man, we're just needed something for Instagram. You know, and I told somebody that they could become, you know, so I consider, so check this out, like, mushrooms are medicines, right? Mushrooms are medicines. If you grow your own mushroom, you're kind of a medicine person, right? You maybe not in the strictest sense. You're not like, you know, an elder, you know, you're not like an elder shaman, but in some ways you're a medicine person. And so I wrote, you can become a medicine person. Take the, you know, training. We have a training on how to grow your own mushrooms, become a medicine person. And I got yelled at. Danielle, are you mad at me because I told people they could be a medicine person? Are you mad at him? Did he say something? Okay, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just hard to get, you know, people without much of a sense of humor yelling at me for, you know, making memes. Phil, do you have a question? A thought, an answer? Are you going to yell at me for making memes?
No yelling. Make more memes. Make memes. Turn them into NFTs and use it to support the psychedelic ecosystem. Do all the acronyms.
Oh, I have my. Will you buy one of my memes? My NFT memes?
I mentioned that because I remember you talking about it.
Oh yeah, man! I love a good
Spread the
NFT.
joy. You made that sound dirty somehow.
Did you have a thought or a question?
I did have a question. I was thinking a little bit more about what you were talking about earlier about how a lot of psychedelic conferences, and probably you could say this about conferences in general, are people talking about money and science. And I think it sounds like the Psilocybin Summit is sort of a counter to that, where it's not about money and science, it's about the other topics that seem to populate the psychedelic ecosystem. So I guess my question is around, do you think we need to bring those together? Do we need to bring the money and science people over? Is it more about like, let's just have everything out there? What are your thoughts?
We have, I mean, we do have science as well. Like, I wouldn't want you to think like that there's no science, but it's important to me that the psychedelic conference is at least a little bit psychedelic. You know, that it has a quality of psychedelia and a little bit of kind of weirdness and kookiness to it. Because I think that sort of in this rush, in this Renaissance / gold rush, it's like, oh, we've got a mainstream, that there's like a lot of people who are in a search for legitimacy and sort of in a search for like, oh, how am I going to monetize this at some sort of really high level? And that all that that's all fine, but the concern is not that people are doing that. The concern is that people are vacating their own souls to do it. Right? So I don't care, you make all the money you want and do all the science you want, don't vacate your own soul. Right? Live in your heart. And so what I would like to see more of is less people scrambling to become palatable to the mainstream, and more people sitting in their center, holding their own tonal vibration and being like, this is what this community is. All right. So it's not necessarily about the external action, you know, and maybe I was a little unfair to money and science because they're not the bad guys. Our own eagerness to be glamorized out of our authenticity is the bad guy. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I guess I was also kind of coming from maybe the angle of not to make science and money bad guys, but maybe seeming more symbols of our very like rational oriented, science focused, logical way of thinking in like more modern societies. And then that gets me thinking more of sort of the mystical side of psychedelics. And there seems to be a very like uncomfortableness right now as the science is sort of like, oh yeah, there's mysticism. We don't really know exactly how to quantify that or study it. We're acknowledging it's real, but we're in this sort of weird place where we don't really know how to integrate that into our modern medical system. I wonder if you have some thoughts on kind of like the mystical side of psychedelics in general and how that's playing out in the current sort of rush to credibility and making everything more palatable to everybody. Like what's happening with the mystical side of things with that
The mystical
process?
side has been and always will be fine. There are mystical people who have been doing their things for since time immemorial. They are doing them today, tonight, as we speak. They will do them tomorrow. And regardless of what policy changes are made or what sort of papers get published. It would be nice if it's nice when other people care about their opinions, and it is nice because we are seeing that those people are to some extent being invited to some tables, right? And it's also nice to see when those people are building tables of their own. There are an increasing number of churches that are more obvious, and I'm just going to assume that excuse me, that those people are, they talk about sincere religious beliefs. I'm just going to assume that most of these spiritualists and church-going folks are sincere. And there's a bell curve with everything. There are doctors and scientists who are saints, and there's doctors and scientists who are demons, and it's hard to tell just by the way they wear their lab coat. So does that answer your question? What do you think of that?
I like the hope and the optimism, certainly aspect of saying, that this mysticism has been going on, has existed before this. No one's trashing it. So I do, that gives me confidence and hope for sure.
Yeah, seemingly. Yeah, there are charts, Nick, and let me just get to, we can maybe keep that going, but I do believe that mushrooms are one of the least, healthiest. I think of healthiest. Well, they kind of are. They're kind of healthy because they create growth of nervous system tissue, right? So you can kind of regenerate your nervous system tissue and your brain tissue by taking mushrooms. So that's pretty healthy. And there are, some of the least negative side effects. You're not going to get cirrhosis of the liver by taking mushrooms. Also, the interesting thing about mushrooms is that you can't really eat that many of them. Like you can drink, like I've met people who, can drink a bottle of vodka, that in their day, they drink a bottle of vodka a day. Like you can drink, like if you really want to go for it, you can drink a lot of alcohol. You can smoke a lot of weed. You can't really eat that many mushrooms. Like at some point you're going to be like, oh, okay. Okay, sorry, I surrender. I think one of the things that's going to happen when we have, this is a Bet Williams quote. She said, when we have legalization of mushrooms, what you're going to find is that there's a lot more people in the world who have mushrooms in their freezer that they haven't looked at for 6 months. But they're just afraid to eat them. Right? So this thing where you say, oh, I have resistance to eating the mushrooms. Yeah, that's normal. I ate mushrooms. It was intense. I'm going to leave these in my freezer for a while. you know, I tell that joke, there's usually somebody who's like, oh yeah, I've had some in there for like 2 years.
Tell us about the potency that potentially can get lost over time. Do you have any insight on that?
No, that's like an Ian Michael Bollinger question.
He was saying that through his research, once the mushroom is ground up, it loses about 50% of its potency within the first month, which I thought was really interesting because so many people are making capsules and it can easily lose that potency quickly. So it's
Yeah.
recommended to only grind up a little bit at a time.
Yeah, I can see that.
I heard
He did say that the gummies keep it stable. If you make gummies out of it, then you've got a stable product.
I heard something about freezers have moisture, so they might not be ideal for long-term storage.
Hmm.
Did you guys hear that?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Again, a little bit outside the area of my expertise. But yeah, I mean, things don't last forever, right? Fresh food is its best, I think, right? Although I did hear that when we eat fresh mushrooms, that drying the mushrooms can make it a little easier on our stomachs. That even if we have tummy aches when we eat mushrooms, is that if we eat them fresh, it'll probably even be worse. Because some of like the proteins in the molecule protein, in the flesh of the mushroom.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Have you been working with the Amanita? I know it's pretty prevalent out where you live.
A little bit. Just like a little tiny bits. I'm not very brave about it. And I haven't really made the teas. I took her class and that was good. But yeah, like a little bit of exploring with it, but I haven't gone very deep. I really like when I see them out there in the woods. Yes. Well, all right. What other thoughts? What other questions? I feel like we're winding down, maybe.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
I don't have a question, but I just realized maybe 20 minutes ago about this event happening. So I just joined and I think I missed a lot of good conversations. So hopefully I can access the recording.
Yes, we will send out the recording. It's so great to see you here.
Good to see you. And I'm so excited about Summit next weekend.
Oh, good.
Okay, I have kind of a fun question maybe. I'm curious if you have a favorite mushroom story or mushroom experience or something like a favorite piece of insight that you've gotten through working with mushrooms.
It just really seems like Oregon's a really great place to eat mushrooms. It sort of seems like the woods up there really lend themselves nicely to the experience. And you just kind of remember just thinking about times when, life would seem so simple. Like there's something about camping where life gets simple. really, really quick. And, the ability to play can return, and sometimes when we don't play enough. And so, in a world that's very, very complex and where we're sort of all overworked and kind of stressed out and worried and stuff like that, to be able to find simplicity and play is kind of huge with your friends, right? Because I remember this memory where there were friends there, and beyond the therapists and the guides and these people and that people and the shamans and whatever is, there's something about eating mushrooms in the woods with your friends that I think is huge. There was recently, the John Hopkins people. So the John Hopkins people have been using classical music. They give you psilocybin in a clinical room and they have you listen to classical music, and it's a perfectly nice playlist. And sometime in the last year, I believe, they did a study that proved that like drums and like new age music was as effective for treatment resistant depression as the classical music. And which is like, okay, we know. It's sort of like what was the gentleman who was here, Phil's question of like the mystics. It's like we know that you can listen to drums. We've always known you could listen to drums. So it's nice that you managed to get somebody to pay you to prove it, but we knew. And so I was joking around with a friend of mine, is like, maybe one day they will prove that it's good to take mushrooms in the woods with your friends. We can have a scientific study that will prove that that's a nice thing to do, that benefits people and is healthy. Does that answer your question? Simplicity, fun, friends, nature.
Yes. And I love that you're inclusive of those experiences. I remember last year at the summit, there were people talking about the value of people taking mushrooms with their friends in a more casual atmosphere and how that can be really healing. So I'm happy to hear that being talked about. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have a lot more experiences in the woods with my friends than I do in like laboratories. I actually have no experience taking psychedelics in laboratories, and I'm okay with that.
Doesn't sound as fun.
Yeah, it's almost like, if you could pick the worst environment to do MDMA in, I mean, I don't think it would exactly be, a hospital room, but it might be close. I think in like one of the Vice episodes on ketamine, there's some sort of ketamine documentary where I think a famous person was doing a large dose of ketamine, and they kind of had him strapped to like a gurney in like a green hospital room, and it was just like horrific. And it's like, why would you do that? And then why would you think that why would you record it and show it to people? Like, you should be embarrassed that that's what you were doing. But people really haven't heard of set and setting. Like, they don't train that when you're an anesthesiologist in medical school. I don't think they come up with set and setting, because the person is supposed to be unconscious. So there's some really good work that people like, Raquel Bennett and Veronica and Eric are doing, at the Polaris Institute, to kind of really push forward the narrative of these things matter. It matters how we treat our patients, in a holistic way.
And I love like how you've shared so many tips over the years about creating the ideal set and setting. I'm curious if you have any like favorite go-to parts of your, I don't want to say routine, but if you have any favorite rituals to set yourself up for and experience.
Just have a Pikachu around for good luck. Yeah. Don't. What is a go-to for set and setting? Yeah, I think that, we're working with the way that energy moves through space, both inside and outside our body, and also inside our minds. And so that is something that is cool to practice before you're going to get high. And so, like, if you have like a little altar space, if you don't, create a little, find a little altar space and, see, do you have like little sacred jimjiks and gigas? Like, do you have little things that are important? Do you have like crystals or sort of like a souvenir coin or, whatever that thing is, a little mushroom there? Like, what do I have around? I've got one of those, I've got a succulent over here and a blue angelite. And, there's a spirit quartz here. And then there's sort of this death head moth pin that my friend gave me. And, so I am sort of on the side of a little bit too much clutter, perhaps. I got like a little bit too much stuff, right? If we think about how energy moves through space, it's like there's probably too much stuff blocking the flow of energy, and some people don't have enough. There's nothing sort of special or meaningful. But if you give yourself a square of space on a bookshelf or coffee table or something like that, and maybe you even put a cloth down. So, another little jimjik is, this is my logo that I'm very fond of, my sort of magical symbol. And I have a friend who works with Shipibo tribes and does a lot of good work supporting them, building wells and stuff like that. Danielle introduced me to Kent, and actually Danielle helped me get Kent to make this. Like, Danielle facilitated this. And so I have this little guy, and it doesn't have to be that fancy, it can be, maybe you've got like, sometimes I've got like one of my grandma's scarves, it's like sort of an ancestral piece, and it's just sort of like, maybe it's silk, maybe it's rayon, I don't know, it's an old lady scarf. And you put it down on a table, and then you play with the stuff on there, and then you put your little blue crystal down, and you put your pin down, and you sit with it, and you hang out, and you're like, is that the right vibe? And it's like, okay, maybe the crystal is supposed to be on the right, and the pin is supposed to be on the left, and the picture of like my kid is supposed to be down there. And then, this I got in Mexico City, like from this was like 50 cents from some guy. This was like whatever the smallest peso bill was, whatever. It's like this sainted virgin. Recite Ave Maria 3 times, it says in Spanish on the back. And maybe that goes there. This was and there's a story to this too, and I'm not going to tell it. But so it's like, what I'm asking you to do is tune yourself into sacred space before you get high, and like move your little things around and have a relationship with your things so that they actually do get some vibes in them, right? Like when you do stuff with them, they get vibes in them. And then you sort of have a little bit more of an understanding of how just like energy whips around your crystals and your beads and your little statues of Ganesha and stuff like that. You might as well get a statue of Ganesha if you can. If you get like $6 statue of Ganesha, you could do a lot worse. It's like the deal of the decade. And so then when you're high, you'll have a greater understanding of how that stuff works. And like you might be in a space and you're like, something's off, something's wrong. All right, I'm good. right? That might be all it takes to like stop you from having a bad trip. And to also just think about the fact, like a lot of bad trips can be stopped in their tracks by recognizing that you have a certain amount of agency. Like I have spoken to people who had the bad trip and like and you trace it back, like what was happening. And it was like, oh, well, my friends, like I felt like super rejected by my friends and this and that and the other thing. And I was like, well, did you say something? And they were like, no, I didn't know I was like allowed to say, hey guys, I'm feeling a little alone right now and I could just kind of use some support. Right? It's like it didn't, and it's like we are not trained that our needs are important, right? And so it's just the simple act of learning how to say, like, I get to say that the crystal's on the right and the bead is on the left, right? It's sort of like, oh, that's magic, right? You're actually like you're creating, it's a magical act of moving stuff around to create change. And then if you're like, oh, okay, I can and it's not neurotic, right? You're sitting there in a meditative space. It's not like you're just fidgeting, right? Because you can't sit still, right? You're like grounded and you're working. And so if you're grounded and you're working and you're like, hey, I actually need to clear the air with you right now. Like me and you have to like I've got to tell you, I'm a little hurt about the thing that happened. Oh man, I didn't mean for you to be hurt. Or maybe they did, and then you're better off knowing that too. But it's like the agency and the executive control and the using your voice and you're using your limbs in a conscious way that is neither repressed nor anxious. That is my tip for setting, for creating a setting.
I love that. I have a crystal I hold every time.
Nice.
Yeah, I think
That's
it's
super.
so important to be able to communicate with the people that you're with, and for inviting people that they have that agency to speak up and that they do have control as much as we believe that we don't have agency over our psychedelic experiences. There is a level of contribution that the participant has in the process. So thank you for naming that, Daniel.
Yeah, for sure.
Any other questions or feedback for Daniel today?
Thanks for answering our questions.
Sure. My suggestion would be to just like edit the video so it's just that one question about set and setting.
You gave us some
favorite.
gems of wisdom. You sprinkled them throughout. So thank you so much.
Phil, any other thoughts?
I just wanted to thank you for being here and thank you so much for everything you're doing with the Psilocybin Summit. And the schedule looks amazing. There's wisdom in there for multiple lifetimes, I'm pretty sure, just in this one summit. So yeah, thank you so much for bringing everyone together and for being here tonight and for everything that you're doing in the community. Really appreciate it.
What do you think of my What do you think of my NFTs?
I liked the Einstein one. I like that was a good quote in there. I like that was a good one. No, I think you're onto something. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You've got some good images in there. More
think
psychedelic whales.
More psychedelic whales. Yeah. I agree.
How can people find out about your work, Daniel?
I just type my name into Google, I'll come up. TamIntegration.com. Just Tam Integration on Instagram. I'm around. Get on my email list. I'll never leave you alone. I'll be with you forever. I will be in the Bay Area in February. I'm doing a weekend training at the Portal.
Amazing. Well, looking forward to seeing you while you're in the Bay Area, and just welcoming everyone to check out your work and join all of your offerings, the Psilocybin Summit. We have a special code for the Psilocybin Summit that we sent out to all members, and we will follow up with the link to the Psilocybin Summit. We are a proud sponsor of the summit.
Yay.
Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you everyone for joining us for this beautiful meeting with Daniel, and looking forward to seeing you all at the summit.
Awesome. Be well, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, everyone. Much love.
Yeah, much love. Thank you.